Hey you guys, time for another book review, and again we're doing some more Christmas horror. So Max Hawthorne, he's originally from Brooklyn, I believe, and he's actually not only just an author, but he's also a screenwriter, a songwriter, a cryptid researcher. There's like a whole bunch of stuff like in this dude's bio. Like he sounds really interesting. Now I had actually never heard of him before, but I guess in kind of more sci-fi or like fantasy circles, he's actually known as the Prince of Paleo Fiction. And I guess that's largely because of his Chronos series, which are, bestsellers. And from what I could determine, these are about like massive prehistoric sea monsters. They actually look pretty cool, the covers of them anyway. But the novel of his that I read, which is from 2022 and is called The Sleigh, is something a little bit different. It still has a big monster in it, but it's a lot more focused on like the Norse mythology surrounding Christmas, I guess. I mean, I picked this book completely at random because I was looking for some Christmas horror, and I'm really glad I picked this one because it was super fun, like super fast paced, really gory, and it's kind of like a really appealing mashup of like a buddy cop kind of story with sort of like a really scary Christmas creature feature. So we know that the big bad is a huge monster, like right from the jump, because in the opening scene, we're kind of inside this very nice, like well appointed New York City apartment of a prominent plastic surgeon whose name is Dr. Donald McKinley. And he lives there with his wife Amanda and his daughter Amy. Now, it's several days before Christmas or a week before Christmas or something like that, and the place is like all decked out, like the tree and everything like that. And there's kind of a sweet scene with like the doctor putting his daughter to bed and all this other kind of stuff. But then all hell breaks loose. Even though the apartment is, I believe, on the eighth floor and has very tight security, like it has a doorman and like all this other kind of stuff, something manages to get into the apartment and chow down on Amanda. Let's put it that way. Much to the horror and chagrin of her husband, who actually witnesses this very large, hulking figure in a black cloak, like eating part of his wife. So the long and short of it is that the doctor and his daughter actually survived the carnage. However, authorities actually believe that Dr. McKinley might be the one responsible for this terrible crime, mainly because pieces of Amanda are later found in his stomach, as though he was the one eating her. Now, the daughter, Amy, tells the police that a monster killed her mommy, but of course they do not believe her. See, it turns out that for the past 10 years, New York City has been plagued by what authorities suspect is a cult of like Satanists or occultists or something like that, that they have dubbed the Christmas cannibals. Every year in the weeks approaching Christmas Eve, I believe they start on December 6th and then go for a couple weeks. There are like the residences of largely wealthy families are usually like somehow breached despite, security. Every member of the family is slaughtered, dismembered, and partially eaten, except for one who is inevitably found to have choked on chunks of their family members, suggesting that this person was either a member of the mysterious cannibalistic cult or was somehow forced to do the bidding of said cult. You know what I'm saying? So, investigators have been working very diligently on the case for a decade now, but they've never managed to figure out exactly what's going on or to catch any of these supposed perpetrators or who the members of this alleged cult even are. They don't even really know what's going on. So the murders continue for like more than 2 weeks every year. Like I said, they start on December 6th, but they stop before midnight on Christmas Eve, and then they don't start up again until the following December. Now, this particular crime that starts the book is a little bit different, though, since the little girl actually survived unharmed, which has not happened so far. And that leads the police to hypothesize, perhaps, that the cult was maybe interrupted in the middle of the crime. So it's right here that we're introduced to our two main protagonists, who are both NYPD detectives, and we will be following them for the rest of the story as they kind of try to get to the bottom of this mystery. So first we have Ilsa Dunbar, who's this very cynical, kind of your stereotypical, like, tough as nails, New York City native. She's, quite small in stature, but she's, like, in really, really excellent, like, physical shape and, is no slouch with a firearm either. She was actually left a beautiful, like, brownstone by her rich parents, so she lives, like, way beyond her means because it was paid for. But she lives in it alone, and that's just how she likes it. She's just kind of a loner kind of person. And she absolutely hates Christmas for reasons that will become clear later on. And then we have Andy Alvilda, as I guess how you pronounce his last name. Now, he's originally from Texas, but then moved to California and worked for the LAPD for years, and then relocated to New York City. So the other officers actually call him Hollywood and kind of make fun of his cowboy boots because he's always wearing cowboy boots. He's just this tall, like, movie star, handsome, good-natured guy. He's into ballroom dancing, and he's just like a real charmer with the ladies. Like, everywhere he goes, everyone's like, well, hey, you know what I mean? Like, he's that kind of... But he's a good dude. Like, he's a good cop. He's very honest. He's very compassionate, and he's really, really good at his job. Now, he loves Christmas, and he actually kind of believes in the paranormal somewhat, because he tells Ilsa later that his mom was psychic and was never wrong about any of her predictions. So because these two partners are sort of opposites, there's kind of a lot of affectionate sniping between them, which is really entertaining. And you just know that, like, romance is going to bloom at some point. And it sort of does, actually. But it's not, like, a huge part of the story. It's just kind of, you know, around the fringes or whatever. The story is mostly centered on the monster and, you know, the numerous murders that are piling up. I will say, though, that even though the main characters are kind of a little bit playing into kind of buddy cop movie stereotypes a little bit, they're still really fleshed out and really relatable. And I found myself, like, really liking them and liking their interactions so much that I legitimately got worried for their safety, like, when the shit started to hit the fan. So at this first murder scene at the McKinley place, the cops notice a couple of interesting things. One of them is a sort of figure eight symbol, some form of which has been found at every one of the previous murder scenes. Then there's a busted out plate glass window, which looks, for all the world, as though something very large was, like, yeeted through it, like, and plummeted 8 stories to the ground, you're led to assume. On the ground, though, Andy and Ilsa don't find any sign of what might have fallen other than some broken glass and this weird mark in the snow that sort of looks like a big-ass hoof print. So because no one is really sure what this figure eight thing is supposed to represent, Ilsa and Andy eventually end up at this kind of high-end but very, like, exclusive and secretive antique shop that's owned by this couple, these Russian immigrants named Oleg and Elena Apostol. And it has, like, a ridiculous amount of security. Like, even considering that it has all this expensive stuff in it, like, the cops are like, what the fuck, man? It's got, like, fucking steel, reinforced shit and everything like that. They're like, this is crazy. Now, Oleg in particular seems to know something about the mythology of this supposed cult that they're looking for. But Ilsa isn't sure how seriously she should take him because one of the prized displays in his store is what he claims is the remains of Santa's sleigh. It's kind of, like, burned and busted up. So, yes, Oleg says the real Santa Claus exists, although Oleg actually refers to him by the name Dead Moros. So, as the story goes on, Ilsa's skepticism becomes a lot more tested, I guess, as the murders continue and reveal these weirder and weirder details that suggest, as you might have surmised, that the killer might not be human at all. Because of the hoof print that I mentioned earlier, you might be thinking it's Krampus, but it's not. It's actually something a lot more sinister that kind of ties in with ancient Norse legends. So yeah, this book was delightful. It was just kind of like a thrill ride, like from start to finish. It just sucks you right in from the first page, and it just doesn't let up until this big, huge, epic climax. The characters are all just loads of fun, and they really get you emotionally invested in the story. Like, so much so that, you know, you genuinely are distraught, like when something bad happens to them, like when they get their asses beat and everything. The gore is plentiful and suitably fucked up. Like I said, you get monsters like tearing people limb from limb and pulling people's heads off and eating them and barfing their guts back up and shit like that. So it's pretty gross. And really the descriptions of the monster and the descriptions of the murder scenes are, like, so vivid that, like, you can almost smell it, I feel like, you know what I mean? So if you want to read, like, a real action-oriented, like, bloody Christmas horror monster thing with, like, a side of, you know, buddy cop comedy. And like I said, and the monster that's in it is great. It's like, it's pretty much indestructible, I guess, but, you know, there's kind of ways to fight it. But yeah, it's really really good. This is definitely the book for you if that sounds like really good. It's kind of a perfect balance of humor and just this Christmas butchery. And it also has like a real heart at the center of it too. So yeah, if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can actually read this for free, and I would recommend it if you're in the mood for, like I said, a really gory Christmas horror. So that will do it for this Tomes of Terror. Thank you very much for watching. Remember, if you liked the video, please like, share, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you guys again on the next one. Merry Christmas.